I never thought the people who gave me life could also be the ones to betray it. My parents. My family. And all of it because of my brother. The beach house meant everything to me. It wasn't just a house. It was my sanctuary, my childhood, my memories. The smell of salt in the air, the sound of waves pounding the rocks, the creaky wooden floors that groaned under the weight of laughter. It was mine, or at least it should have been. But my parents had a plan that didn't include me. They wanted to sell it to fund my brother's new life. And the worst part was I didn't even know they were capable of such betrayal. I remember the first time I saw the sunrise from the porch when I was 6. I sat there, tiny and curious, thinking maybe magic lived in the horizon. And in some ways, it did until that magic was threatened. Every summer, my brother and I would fight over who got the bigger bedroom, who could stay up later, whose turn it was to feed the goldfish. But it was never really about him. It was always about me, my heart, my attachment to this house. And they, my parents, they didn't see it. Or maybe they did and they didn't care. I found out about the sale one rainy afternoon. I had called my father casually about something else, and he told me, "We're selling the beach house, honey. It's time to let it go." I laughed, thinking he was joking, but the pause on the other end told me otherwise. "For your brother," he said. "He needs it for his new life. You'll understand." Understand how my parents thought it was okay to erase my childhood for him? My blood ran cold. I could feel every memory, every laugh, every sunset being ripped away from me. And just like that, I realized I had been completely invisible. I wanted to scream, to cry, to beg, but I didn't. I knew I had to stay quiet, at least for now, to plan, to watch, to wait. I remembered every time they chose him over me, every birthday forgotten, every achievement ignored. And now my home, my sanctuary, my very past, was being handed to him on a silver platter. And they expected me to smile and nod, to play the dutiful daughter. No, not this time. Little did they know I was already steps ahead. They thought I was unaware, weak, passive. But I had always learned to watch, to listen, to notice things they thought I didn't. And now I would use every lesson they taught me against them. Every oversight, every betrayal. When Dad decided to use his old key, he had no idea who he was really letting into the house. No idea who the new owner really was. He was about to learn the hard way that some things aren't as simple as they seem. The key turned slowly in the lock, the metal scraping against the worn-out door. The house smelled of the ocean, of old wood and salt, but also something new, something unfamiliar. And I was ready. Ready to show them that I had been watching, ready to reclaim what they thought they could take from me. The game had changed, and I was no longer the child they underestimated. The day my father used his old key, I watched silently from a distance, my pulse quickening. I knew he expected an empty house, a smooth transition, and the satisfaction of helping my brother step into a better life. He didn't expect the key to reveal anything other than a door ready to be handed over. But that was where he was wrong. The lock clicked, the door creaked open, and the house breathed the same salty air I had grown up with. But something was different. The furniture, the curtains, even the way the sunlight hit the floorboards felt off. The house didn't recognize him. It was as if it was quietly laughing at his assumptions, quietly waiting for the truth to unfold. I had already begun my quiet investigation, moving carefully, leaving no trace of my intentions. The sale had been handled hastily, a paperwork shuffle my parents thought no one would notice. But I noticed everything. Every signature, every stamped date, every detail that would have slipped past anyone else. And that's when I discovered the truth. The house had been sold, yes, but not to my brother. Not to the person my parents thought would inhabit it. The papers told a different story. The name on the ownership documents was unfamiliar, deliberate, and perfectly chosen. I smiled quietly, knowing that my careful planning had turned into their greatest surprise. The house would never belong to them or to him. It belonged to someone who understood its worth. Someone who would honor it, and most importantly, someone who would let me control the timing of their revelation. I watched my father step further inside, completely unaware. Every footfall echoed against the walls. each creak of the floorboards a subtle warning of what was coming. He inspected rooms, ran his hand over the countertops, opened cabinets, and smiled at nothing. He didn't yet understand the layers of the story, the way a house could hold not just memories but also secrets, waiting for the right moment to expose the truth. And I was patient. I had always been patient. I had learned early in life that rushing made you weak, that waiting for the perfect moment made you unstoppable. While they had celebrated his new life and counted on my silence, I had been quietly moving my pieces into place. Every missed birthday, every overlooked achievement, every moment of favoritism had taught me strategy, observation, and restraint. I learned early that revenge rarely needs shouting. It prefers patience, the kind of slow, precise work that builds pressure until something finally gives. I was tired of being the one who felt first and last. Now I wanted my parents and my brother to feel something steady and unavoidable, the weight of their own choices. Buying the house was only the beginning. The purchase had to be quiet, clean, and untraceable to me. I set up a legal name that sounded like a distant trust, paperwork that blended with dozens of other small transactions, and a bank account with just enough movement to look ordinary. I studied the rhythm of my parents' lives. The days they drove into the city, the evenings they spent watching old programs, the times when their attention thinned and curiosity slept. I learned when to move, and when to let the sea wash my footprints away. I let them take credit for the idea of selling. Let them pat themselves on the back for their generosity toward my brother. Let them believe they had done something noble. Pride, when inflated, makes people careless. I invited my brother closer, pretending to be the model sister. Sympathetic, diplomatic, almost maternal. He was an easy player in this because he wanted to believe the house would give him legitimacy, a place to anchor his life that previously had only drifted. He bragged to friends, he measured plans in his head, he bought curtains in bright stores, imagining rooms painted for him. His eagerness became my advantage. There were small, deliberate gestures that looked like accidents. A returned call left on their phone. A chance mention of a realtor I had never met. A casual observation dropped into conversation that planted an idea like a seed. I learned to let them feel in control, then let doubt creep in. My brother's excitement turned brittle. He grew defensive, explaining plans he had never asked permission for, projecting confidence that was all surface. He began to ask about small details and be surprised when even my mother started to hesitate. When doubt creeps in, arrogance shrinks. When the right moment arrived, I orchestrated a small gathering at the house. My parents arrived with their best smiles and worst assumptions. My brother walked through the rooms like a man already seated in a chair he had not yet bought. My mother fussed with curtains and tested light switches as if they were ceremonial flicks that blessed the future. I watched from the doorway, a quiet presence, as the house warmed to them for a moment, forgiving as it often did for fleeting visitors. Then I let them find something that seemed random but was meant to guide them where I wanted. A photograph propped against a framed certificate, an envelope addressed to the trust name I had used to buy the house. My father picked up the photograph and laughed at first, dismissing it as a trick of light. He did not see the envelope tucked beneath the frame until my mother slid over a hand and pulled it free, as if fate had handed them the missing piece. They read the name and the signature with casual amusement, the way people skim headlines they assume are irrelevant. My brother smiled as if he had found a new ally. It was enough. Once their guard dropped, I moved the next piece into place. I reminded them that the house had never truly belonged to anyone who didn't respect it, to anyone who thought it could be handed away like a simple gift, that the ownership on paper was now accurate, reflective of the truth that they had ignored. The house was mine all along. Shock spread across their faces like a rising tide. My father's hand trembled slightly as he held the key in one hand and the papers in the other. My mother's lips parted, a soundless gasp escaping, her mind racing to reconcile what she thought she knew with what was right in front of her. My brother froze mid-step, the weight of anticipation collapsing into disbelief. They didn't argue. There were no protests, no shouting, no desperate attempts at persuasion. Only silence, The kind of heavy silence that comes when pride and assumption collide with reality. My father finally understood that a key alone could not unlock the consequences of his choices. My mother's gaze fell to the floor, shame and disbelief mingling in equal measure. My brother's face paled, realizing that the life he had imagined was built on an illusion. I let them absorb it, step by step, letting the lesson sink in. Ownership was more than a signature, more than a key, more than the promise of a parent. Ownership required respect, understanding, and acknowledgement of the life it held. And they had failed in all of it. The days that followed were quieter than I expected. The tension in the house had settled into something heavier, slower, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. My parents moved cautiously, avoiding direct eye contact, their voices softer, as if they were testing the limits of what they could say without disturbing the fragile balance. My brother had retreated into a corner of his own thoughts. The confidence that had carried him through life diminished by the realization that privilege alone could not claim what belonged to someone else. I spent hours walking through the beach house, touching the surfaces that had been mine since childhood. The smell of salt and wood, the warmth of sunlight through the windows, the creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. All of it reminded me that this space had always been a part of me, a part of my history that no one could steal. It wasn't about cruelty. It wasn't about gloating or making them suffer. It was about restoring balance, reclaiming what had been disregarded, and proving to myself that my voice, my choices, and my strength mattered. The house was a symbol of that strength, a tangible reminder that patience and planning can turn betrayal into empowerment. I began to make subtle changes, small ones at first. A new curtain here, a fresh coat of paint there, a photograph hung where it belonged. Each change was deliberate, a way of reclaiming the house not only legally but emotionally. The house was mine in every sense, a sanctuary that reflected the care, attention, and love I had always given it. The ocean roared gently, waves curling against the shore with the steady rhythm of time. The beach house had survived storms before, and it had survived this one. It stood as a testament to endurance, memory, and the quiet power of someone who refuses to be invisible. I had reclaimed more than a home. I had reclaimed my story, my history, and my sense of self. And as I watched the horizon glow with the colors of dusk, I knew that no one could ever take that away from me. The house would continue to hold my memories, my victories, and the lessons of patience and resilience. And I would carry those lessons with me, not as a burden, but as a quiet, unshakable strength that no betrayal could ever diminish. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. The past had been reclaimed, the present was mine, and the future, like the endless waves rolling toward the shore, was open, full of possibility, and entirely under my control.